listening to your show.
The point that there's limited news
I just
coverage.
want to know what your viewpoint is.
Because major news organizations have been told on, what they can report on.
The people's voice. Welcome back. I am Trey Evans, and this is The People's Voice. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I really appreciate it. This week I wanted to kind of take the podcast into a different direction. Well, I should say address a topic that I think with all of the challenges and changes that have come with COVID-19 over the past 2 years, I think this is a topic that has not received, I guess, the coverage that it should receive, at least from a mainstream standpoint. And that is the topic of poverty in America. And so before I get into that, let me just say today I am actually working from the road, so I'm not in my home studio. So if the quality sounds a little bit different, that's the reason why. So just want to acknowledge that portion. But going back to poverty in America, and matter of fact, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this today is because I am traveling, and when you travel, you obviously see so many different aspects of life, and that's another reason why I encourage people to travel when they can. I'm traveling for work, but definitely travel, and I'm not talking about even abroad, just here in the United States. If you get a chance, just travel to another state, whether you can do it by car if you can, or bus or train, however you can get to a different destination, so you can kind of understand and get a different aspect of life, because sometimes we live in these silos where we see our world in the world that we encompass on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes we can be misled to believe that this is life for everyone. And the fact of the matter is that's not the case. Many Americans are struggling with poverty. And today I wanted to cover the causes of poverty in America, and maybe offer, or I guess review some of the solutions that have been proposed to try to end poverty in America. Now, and I wanted to specifically focus on poverty in America because, sometimes the perception, particularly when you're talking to an audience abroad, is that, everyone in the United States has the means to live not only just a comfortable life, but a life of wealth and access, and that's just not the case. So in doing the research, I wanted to find out, first of all, what were the causes of poverty, at least a short list of some of the reasons why poverty occurs in the United States. And when I was doing this research, one of the things that immediately came up was basically a list, and the list varied depending on what site you decided to research, or I should say depending on the website and the research that I did. There are several different reasons for poverty in America. But for purposes of the podcast, I wanted to kind of focus on the five that I found to be accurate. I shouldn't say accurate, but the five that I've seen several examples of, during my life and in my travels and, just in my experiences. Now, oftentimes, because poverty in America is not associated with poverty that you may see in other countries and other continents across the world, right? Because when you look at poverty in some of the undeveloped nations where there is no access to housing and there is no access to clean water or just to some of the basic utilities that are needed to be able to sustain, develop, and to be able to generate income to develop those areas and to develop housing and things of that nature. Those resources are not available. So, you see poverty at a different on a different scale in many undeveloped countries. But in the United States, poverty that you see or that you don't see, I should say first, poverty that we see, we immediately associate with people being homeless or people struggling from drug addiction and things of that nature and living on the street. But in actuality, there is a large portion of our society that is among what they call the working poor. And these are individuals that, have jobs or have income, but their income is not able to sustain them or their families. And so they live well below the poverty line as it's defined in the United States. And poverty, the poverty line in America, there obviously are different scales, but, based on the last 2020 census, a family of 4 people that make less than $27,000 a year is considered poverty in America, which, when you break that down between 4 people, that's maybe $6,000 a person. And obviously if you have children, then that basically means that you only have 2 people generating about $13,000 of income if you're looking at a family of 4 with 2 adults and 2 children, only generating $13,000 a piece. And the poverty line, like I said, in America does vary, but in order to be classified as that, you basically have to make less than $27,000 for a family of 4, less than $31,000 for a family of 5. Now, the median income in 2020, based on the 2020 U.S. Census, was about the median household income. Let me just say that the median household income was the average was $62,000. So when you hear the phrase that poverty is only 1 paycheck away, that's just not some clever or unclever line. Like if the average income, median household income in the United States is $62,000, and if a family of 4 making less than $27,000 is considered below the poverty line, or let's just say a family of 5, is making less than $31,000, that's considered to be below the poverty line. That means that if a household is making $62,000, if one person loses their job, right? Let's just say you got two parents, they both make $31,000 apiece annually, right? That's $62,000. If one adult loses their job in a family of five, that income goes from from 62,000 down to 31,000. And below 31,000, you're at the poverty line. And that quickly it can happen. And this is a reality for many Americans here in the United States, because looking at some of the data, it's almost 11% of the United States population, roughly almost 40 million people, are considered to be in poverty. And the reason I wanted to cover this is because, like I said, I'm traveling this week, and as I was traveling, and I'm just driving, I'm not across the country or anything like that. I'm only a few states away from my home, but during my travel up, I had to stop. I made a stop, just to get some gas and stretch my legs a little bit, and I just saw a family. It was a mother, and she walked into the store, and I could just tell she was, it was kind of like, it was a struggle for her, right? And you don't want to judge people, but you could just see, she had two of the kids with her. I think there was one outside, and I could see her, looking in the store, trying to get just some of the basics, a couple of juices and things of that nature. And I'm not sure how that works now with food assistance and food stamps and things of that nature, but you could just tell, right? And that's what prompted me to want to explore this today. But getting back, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, and I apologize. So based on that, I wanted to kind of look into what are the causes of poverty in America. And like I said, there are multiple reasons why, but I want to cover 4 or 5 topics, or discussions or reasons why poverty is created in America. And one of the first ones that came up was lack of access to quality employment. And one of the reasons why I was talking about in the beginning about the working poor is because I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen as well, many individuals who would be classified as a working poor. And, a lot of times the first thing we want to think about are, I guess, individuals or grown-ups who work in maybe fast food, maybe work as in some of the service industries, whether it would be car wash, restaurant, I guess in a store, in a one of the fast food stores. I know I keep saying fast food, but the reality is that the working poor hold jobs that many people wouldn't even consider that someone could be classified as a working poor. I mean, there are individuals who are working in office settings and professional settings who do not make a livable wage, particularly when they have families and other responsibilities to take care of, who are among the working poor. I mean, if a a single parent, whether it's a single father or a single mother, is only generating, $30,000 a year at a let's say some type of clerical job, executive assistant, hotel security. These individuals are not generating a lot of money, and that's a reality that I don't think many people understand. So, number one, right? The number one reason for poverty in America is because of inadequate employment that does not adequately support a livable wage that allows individuals to be able to sufficiently take care of families. The second reason why there's poverty in America, or one of the second causes that I just decided to discuss for the cause of poverty in America, is the lack of affordable housing. And I started out with employment first because that's obviously where income has to be generated in order to provide for the necessities of life. And one of those necessities of life is adequate shelter. And particularly now, as we are coming out of COVID for the, I don't know how manyth time at this point, across the United States, you're seeing skyrocketing increases in housing cost. And that's from purchases to renting. There's been a substantial increase in the cost just to maintain housing, or to maintain shelter over the family. So now you combine that with having a job that's paying less than $15 an hour, which is the goal of minimum wage being met eventually for all states. $15 an hour is not adequate enough to support affordable housing unless you have multiple sources of income. And so the second reason why there's a great deal of poverty in America is because a lack of affordable housing. So first we have, poor access to employment that is able to generate income that can help sustain a family. The second reason why there's poverty in America is because a lack of housing, or at least affordable housing, to help families maintain a decent place to live, which then of course trickles down into environments and gets into crime and things of that nature. But I don't want to go into that today. I just wanted to cover again some high level reasons why there are causes for poverty in America. The third one is substance abuse, and this one I was a little hesitant about because substance abuse, obviously is a problem in our country, but I don't feel like it's the cause for poverty. Now, I know it can create poverty, particularly if it's in areas where substance abuse is prevalent, and there's a repeat cycle of usage within the generation and the community. I can understand that. Well, actually, as I'm sitting here, I take that back. Yeah, no, I definitely can see how substance abuse does create poverty because, and it just goes to the first two things that I talked about. If you don't have adequate money and then you live in areas that doesn't have access to quality housing, and you're probably in areas where substance abuse is prevalent, and statistically, unfortunately, many of the residents in those areas become victim to that. So substance abuse, I want to make it clear, and I talked about this in a podcast a few weeks back. Substance abuse is not just drugs, because a lot of times people say, "Oh, well, it's drugs," and they talk about maybe marijuana or cocaine or heroin, but substance abuse is alcohol as well. And there are many individuals in the United States struggling from alcohol addiction and alcohol abuse, which has created situations where families have lost their livelihood and their homes because of the substance abuse from alcohol. So I don't want that to go under the rug. So the first three reasons for, or I guess the first three causes of poverty in America, just to recap, the first one was lack of access to quality employment. Second is lack of access to quality housing. Third is the use of drugs and alcohol, which I had to actually retract my statement, and you can definitely, I can definitely see how that would cause poverty for a family, particularly if someone is using their resources to support their drug or alcohol habit. The fourth reason was lack of education, and I guess if I was to put it in order, I would put lack of education first, because and education, I want to be very clear. Education, when I say lack of education, I am not just talking about higher learning institutions. I'm not talking about colleges and universities, right? Because all education is, at any level, is training. It is training, allowing individuals to develop a skill set that they can then monetize and present to the market in order to create income to sustain their family. So lack of education is a very broad topic, because it's not just, again, higher education. And I want to make that very clear. That can be lack of education or lack of access to education, quality education, from trade schools as well. Whether you're a plumber or electrician or construction worker or a contractor, doesn't matter. Lack of education in all of those fields will definitely create an atmosphere of poverty, because in order to generate income, and again, I'm focusing here on America, and it can be applicable anywhere, but you need a skill set to be able to generate income to support your needs and your family. And whether you are someone who is a farmer, and just to go to the agricultural piece of it, or you are what I guess people here in the United States consider a quality profession, you're a doctor, right? That's always, for some reason, I always wonder why that's like the bar for success in America. Oh, you're a doctor and a lawyer. I'm like, I know doctors who are struggling. I know lawyers who are struggling too, but that's a whole nother conversation. But lack of education creates poverty, and it really shouldn't be lack of education. It should be lack of training, right? You need to have a skill set that allows you to generate some form of income, particularly when you live in a capitalist society. So that's the fourth reason for the causes of poverty in America. That's what I'm covering today, keeping it very high level. I'm trying my best not to get in depth and into the weeds. I just want to have a high level conversation, and I'm sure that I will cover this again and kind of get more in depth to each of those categories and kind of provide additional details. And lack of education, or lack of training is something that I think we all know. The reason I was saying in the beginning that I believe this should be first is because without training, you won't get access to jobs or be able to create your own business. Without the business or job, you won't be able to get to quality housing, which would then put you into areas where substance abuse is prevalent or accessible. And so that's why I kind of feel like lack of education should be first. But that's up for debate, and I'm sure each of you have an opinion, and I can respect that. The last reason why, and again, recapping, covering the reasons for poverty in America. The last reason, and the first four, just to recap again. Number one was lack of jobs. Number two was lack of housing. Number three is substance abuse, just drug and alcohol, and I always want to put emphasis on that. And then number four was lack of education. The fifth reason, which I don't think many people know, is that one of the biggest causes of poverty in America is because of medical issues. Now, I'm sure you all have heard the term health is wealth, and it sounds very, I guess very catchphrase, but it really is one of the keys to being able to sustain and to provide a quality life for yourself and for your family. I'm a big proponent on self-preservation, right? First law of nature is self-preservation. And if you are enduring medical challenges, particularly here in the United States, where medical support is not free, right? We know of other countries that provide free medical for their citizens, but here in the United States, this is a means of being able to, it's a service, right? It's a service. And I was going to try to say something more prolific, but it's a service, right? Supporting medical issues is a service. And as I said just a few minutes ago about, one of the revered professions in the United States is being a doctor, and I guess around the world. And it's because they charge so much money that, some of these doctors make a ridiculous amount of money. And, one of the ways that individuals end up in poverty in America is because they have medical challenges that don't either don't allow them to continue to work, or become so expensive that they can't afford to pay the cost to support their medical issue, and at the same time be able to maintain quality housing, provide provide education, or I should say have access to education and training, which then could lead to substance abuse and, of course, not being able to maintain consistent employment. So those are the 5 reasons or the 5 causes of poverty in America. Now, we've covered the 5. So how does this get solved? And that is another detailed conversation. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to break that up into 2 parts. I think this is a good starting point in terms of going over the causes. And what I'll do is next week, I'll go over the solutions that have been proposed to correct, or I should say at least reduce, because poverty in America will always exist, and that's part of a different conversation or opinion for myself. But what I'll do next week is I'll cover the solutions, or at least some of the proposed solutions that have been discussed about how poverty in America can be solved, and discuss some of the areas where it has been reduced, and maybe offer some examples that can be employed by individuals and also by some of the states where poverty is prevalent. So that's my time for today. I appreciate everyone listening and taking the time to check me out on my podcast. Again, if you have any comments about what we discussed today, please hit me up on my socials. You can hit me at I am Trey Evans on Instagram, Trey Evans on Facebook. But again, I appreciate you tuning in. As always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans. I am the people's voice. And please tell somebody about the dream. Salute.
The people's voice.